curva for a possible future lever espresso machines. And at the end, there's plenty of room for discussions, questions. So I'll start with an introduction of myself. So my name is Paul Schilpoort. I work in Holland with my company Oggetti Design. And I'm working on a number of individual, some are concept designs, some are assignments for companies. I'll just show you a few of my designs. This is a conceptual idea for a sports bicycle called the V-Track. This started out as a study for a very slim bicycle frame, very minimalistic. So you can see it's quite streamlined with LED lighting incorporated in the front and in the rear of the top frame bar. But then I started looking into bicycle suspension, and I thought maybe it would be interesting if the frame could be part of the suspension. So now the frame hinges at the top near the steering bar with a shock absorber in between. But this is purely a concept, and I'm trying to investigate now. If this could be interesting, I have to find out how this actually works if you ride such a bicycle. Another concept I would like to show is the bike pod. This is something I made with a couple of other international designers. And the idea behind this is to make a storage device for people who ride expensive bicycles. Because now, I mean, I come from Holland. There are many people who ride bicycles. Often they have one really nice one and one crappy bicycle, which they use to go into town or go to a bar. Because they don't, if you park it outside, chances are it will get stolen. So the idea behind the bike pod is to make an exclusive bike locker for an exclusive bicycle. Something that you could put near railway stations, offices. And to minimize the ground space on this, you can see on the top right that the bike is stored almost vertically. So if you put the bicycle in the front, you hook the front wheel into a little hook, which is attached to the frame. And as you pull down the door, the whole frame inside pulls the bicycle into the bike pod. So it's stored almost vertically. And at the back, there's some room, just an open space to put normal bicycles. A third concept I would like to show you before I go into the La Marzocco history and design is my first design for an espresso machine. So this is also how I ended up with La Marzocco through this design. This is another design I made just by myself as a concept, something, because I'm really interested in espresso machine designs. I love espresso. I think espresso machines are really interesting to work on because there's a lot of emotion involved with espresso machines. It's not like designing a toaster or a vacuum cleaner. Nobody really cares a lot about that, as long as it works. But an espresso machine is something really emotional, essential product even. So this started out as a research, actually it originated in a research into shapes, using simple shapes and to make products from simple shapes. So this is based on a cylinder which is tilted over and then cut so it's straight on the bottom and the top. And it's put into balance, into equilibrium by this curved metal plate, which also incorporates the drip tray of the machine. So the basic design is quite sleek, quite modern, but it has some of the classic elements of espresso machines, which you can see at the front, of course, the part where the coffee actually comes out of, and the buttons. And I got a lot of good reactions to this design. A lot of people really like this. So I started researching, maybe it's possible to take this into production. And then I ended up at Henk Langkemper, who works in Holland as the Dutch distributor for La Marzocco. He really loved it as well, but he said it's such an exclusive design, he didn't really see it fit with any of the existing companies. But then we talked more, and he talked about La Marzocco and how he thought maybe there could be a connection there. So last year, I met up with all the guys from La Marzocco. I went to Vienna to the coffee fair. And eventually, they also liked my designs, what I showed them. So they told me, why don't you research the lever espresso machine, see if there's a possible interest in that. So to do that, I researched first, of course, the history of the lever espresso machine, and La Marzocco in particular. So I will just like to explain briefly the history of the lever espresso machine, which started out in the late 1940s. In Italy, so shortly after the war. And what it did, it introduced a really important mechanical innovation, which was the piston pressure. So let me just show you one of these designs. This is one of the La Marzocco designs. You can see the big levers at the top. So what it does, when you pull down one of these levers, you compress a really strong spring. And a little piston in a chamber goes up, and the piston gets filled with very hot water. And then when you release the lever, it pushes the spring pushes the piston down, and it makes one shot of very good espresso. But a big innovation with these machines, these first lever machines, was that for the first time it was possible to brew a really good cup of coffee, a really full-bodied coffee espresso with a crema layer on top. Now, La Marzocco also got into this market quite early, in the early 1950s, so these are one of the early designs. And interesting enough, I didn't know, of course, like all of you, the van parked downstairs, the completely renovated van with all these lever espresso machines inside, which is perfect because now, after my talk, you can go down and actually see these machines for real, because they're all inside. You can see what they look like. And you can also see how different they are from new machines, like these machines you see here. The production techniques are really very different. Because these old machines were built, they're extremely heavy with all kinds of cast and polished metal bodywork on it. And they look, I mean, still today, they look really wild and eccentric, but it's economically impossible to manufacture something like this today. Maybe for one or two exclusive clients, but not as a serially manufactured product. These are some other designs. This machine is also downstairs and parked in the van. Yeah, so La Marzocco built these machines for a number of years in the 1950s, a lot of these wild, eccentric designs. And yeah, even though it's not really possible to manufacture something like this today, it is a really important part of La Marzocco heritage. So I studied these machines and tried to get some ideas, some clues out of here. Like, what are the most important features, like the really round curves, of course, on these machines. So I took that with me for the design of the new machine. And of course, it needs to match a little bit the existing machines of La Marzocco. You can see a couple here, like the Strada and the new Linea machine, the exclusive model here. And these are more made with sheet metal, the Strada with casted aluminum sides. But what I find interesting is, even though the production techniques have changed so much and La Marzocco has come a long way since then, the company is still really true to its artisan roots, that it still manufactures these machines by hand to customer order. So this is actually quite an interesting, I was thinking about this and I thought it was interesting. It's actually also a form of sustainable design. I mean, people talk about sustainable design always about recycling, just getting new products, recycling the old ones. A lot of waste is created and trying to dispose of the waste in a good way. But what La Marzocco actually does is building really high quality products, which people really love, they have an emotional bond with, and a lot of them will never get scrapped. I mean, machines like this, people will pay a fortune just to buy this machine and restore it. So I think this is also a form of sustainable design, actually, to build something people really have an emotional bond with, something that they love, something that they will cherish, and keep on using forever and restore them. So I want to design something that also follows that lineage. I don't like the modern society where we just throw everything away the moment it breaks. So let me show you my design concept, the La Curva, which is based on studying the modern La Marzocco machines, the classic La Marzocco machines, and of course the whole coffee culture and heritage. The idea that I based this on, which I will show you in my first slide, the side view. As you can see, I looked at the Strada as when I started this, it was the latest machines, trying to get a bit of connection with the Strada using these side frames. But an idea I incorporated here, because I talked to a lot of people, of course, and every time they told me this dual boiler system is really a very important part of the La Marzocco machine. So I thought if this is like an exclusive trademark for La Marzocco, maybe we should show that in the machine. So I made this design that accentuates the double boiler system. So at the front there's this circular pattern with the La Marzocco lion engraved, which symbols the front coffee boiler. And at the rear there's a larger circular form which accentuates the hot water boiler, the steam boiler at the back. And I made this low profile in the side to follow, it's a little bit difficult to see here, but to follow the curved neck of these machines. So it's almost one continuous line flowing through there. And what I thought would be interesting, because these machines are quite big usually, but to make it more lightweight, at least in appearance. So this is why the black frame only incorporates the front legs and not the rear one. So it looks, when it sits on the counter, it looks more like it's floating above the counter when you see it from the back. Now the machine, so like I said, it incorporates the front legs, and these stand out quite a bit forward because it has to take the momentum of the lever, of course, because this mechanical action is quite strong. So it has to give support at the front. Now the lever mechanism is still under development. We're still researching this to see if we can do something different, not use the standard group, but come up with something new. So I can't go too much into detail about that because it's very much under development. So I'll just stick mainly to my design features in this machine. The drip tray is attached to a parallelogram construction, so it can move up and down while remaining level, using these buttons on the side here. You can see the front, I tried to keep the dashboard, so to speak, quite simple and clean, with new steam wand operation, which I will show you in the next slide. You can see here that the actual pipe of the steam wand is a lot shorter than on the other machines. I mean, you can compare this with the Strada, for example, where the pipe comes out of the top, goes forward, and then down. And well, I talked to a lot of people, and many said, yeah, it's actually much better if the pipe is as short as possible to get the best possible steam production, and in a very short period of time. So I thought, why not make it as short as possible, make it come out of the front and down, just one angle. So this is what I incorporated on this design, and putting the lever for the steam operation on the side, which is a problem on other machines, because when you do this, when you swivel, if the pipe comes out of the top like that, you swivel it sideways and you have a lever as well, they intersect. It doesn't work. So on my machine, I moved the point where the pipe comes out all the way down, actually to the rotation point of the lever, more or less. So when you use this lever, when you put it forward, it doesn't intersect with the steam pipe operation. We're experimenting now with a bigger ball socket fitting on the end of the steam pipe, so because it needs to be able to swivel out quite a bit, which is not possible with a small ball on the Strada, for example. So you can see here how this works. Another thing I discussed with Kent a while back was the clutter of these water and drainage pipes and electricity going in and out of the machine. This is just one example, but these situations occur. I mean, usually there's a hole in the counter where you put the wires and the hoses through, but even then it looks ugly because the machine sits up quite a bit for cleaning purposes. And when you look underneath, you see all these hoses and electricity cables coming out, which looks quite ugly. So I discussed this idea with Kent one time. Why not put them in the legs of the machine? Why not let them enter and exit the machine invisibly? So this is what I incorporated in my design. So here, so this is still a concept, but here they would enter and exit the machine through the rear legs. So these are hollow, and they would accommodate for the water, the drainage, the electricity. And this can be separated. So on one side you can have electricity, on the other side all the water and drainage connections. So when as a customer, you walk into a bar and approach this machine from the back, you see a really clean installations, no cables, no fittings, you don't see anything, you only see the actual machine. This is another idea I incorporated because I talked to a lot of service engineers as well. And they said, yeah, it can be quite a hassle to, first you have to remove all the cups from a machine if you want to go inside, then unscrew all kinds of panels just to get to the components. And I'm quite interested in car design myself. I also looked at concept car design for this machine. And I thought, why not make it as a car? Why not make it as a car bonnet, where you can just, in a car, you just open one huge piece and you can more or less access all the important mechanical parts in the front. So I incorporated this idea in this machine, where it hinges all the way on the back of the frame. So the entire bodywork can be hinged back, and you can access most of the important parts immediately. You still have to take off the cups, of course. I mean, it would be possible to make a separate cup tray that you lift off, but it would be really heavy if it's filled with cups. So it needs to be reinforced. So I don't know if that's really practical, but take off the cups and you can hinge it backwards, immediately access everything. The side panels can be removed, of course, for if you really need specific access from the side for some parts. Now, this machine was also made for customization. especially with these metal plates on the front. I put there now the La Marzocco lion, which I think is a really strong symbol, and it's also an important part of La Marzocco heritage, which is, it's used today, but not so much on the machines. So I thought, why not put it on the side? It's a really strong and attractive logo. Maybe it can be modernized a little bit, but I think it would be interesting to use that on the machine. But you can also engrave other logos there, maybe a logo of a bar, of a restaurant, or a chain of coffee shops. The side panels as well, these are now made of plexiglass with the La Marzocco logo engraved into it, and with LED lighting all around it, so it lights up very nicely. The La Marzocco logo is really bright. This could also be customized. There's a large surface area on the back on this round panel, which could be customized with graphics or spray the whole thing in a different color. There are all kinds of possibilities there. I also built a one-to-one scale mock-up of this machine, which unfortunately I was not allowed to show here today because it's very much under development, but we will study this further at the factory in the coming time and see where this will end up. But it seems there's an interesting market for the lever machine, so I hope this machine, maybe with some alterations, will go into production in the future. So thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them.